All right, so evidently I didn't push the buttons right, and we weren't live, but now we're live. Try this again.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
And welcome everybody. Trying this again. We had to go postpone the beginning of the show because a gizzard was corking us. So, out of respect for those folks, we held off the show for everybody watching live. We're like 20 minutes late. So, for everybody listening in the future as a podcast, welcome. Everybody can be part of the show. This is the internet after all. It's designed to be interactive, so be part of the show. Leave comments. You're joining us live on Friday evenings at midnight Eastern. Then leave comments out there. Our puppy co-host is exhausted from managing and supervising all day again. Also, our I call them Texas blackberries. I don't know what they are. There's some kind of blackberry-looking tree in the backyard. Is popping out a pound of blackberries every day. I haven't been eating them, so little dude and the girl have been eating them, and he's stuffed with berries right now. So anyway, little co-host over here is just gonna sit here doing nothing, but we'll dig into the show and get it going here. We'll shove the co-host down into the corner. Say hey to the people joining us live. G23 is first one joining us. Welcome, Krabby Turtle, also out there this evening. Good afternoon. Woods joining us also with the hashtag bacon bit in there. Since we got a hashtag bacon bit, why don't we? It's been a while since we've grabbed the bag of biscuits. What do we got here? Hemp Elements Plus. It's legal now. So they're eating marijuana biscuits. Mobility Bites, hip and joint, because this guy's hip, and it's made out of marijuana, so it's got joints in there. And it's made by CB Distillery. See how I play on words there? So look, they're addicted to these. Watch this. Watch this. He's addicted. It's like fentanyl for him. He's gonna eat it. Because of the laws, you have to also give one to the girl dog. Is it possible to get the girl dog done? Can this happen? Do we see her down there? I have to knock Woods out of here so that we can see the girl dog down here. Girl dog, would you like this biscuit? Turns out she'll eat biscuits also. We could build some kind of a platform and have the girl dog sit back here, but we need a bunch more Patreons for that. We need a lot more Patreons to have that dog in the show. A lot of times she would sit outside. She's bad now, so she doesn't sit outside anymore. All right. So thanks to Woods for essentially getting them started with a biscuit. They always like to start off the show like that. That used to be what Gunpowder used to do, but now that Woods took that up, I guess. Hey, let's pay attention to the show over here. All right. Who else is out there? G23, then Saint, welcome. And that's everybody. She's mellow, that's for sure. And this little dude is very easily, he's very comfortable with chopsticks, and he's very comfortable eating any kind of food that comes from China, as far as I can tell. So, just saying. Also, I'm pretty sure he understands Chinese language. So, we're going to be taking a look at one of our blogs. We have a couple of them. One of them is on Patreon. That's for the people that subscribe to what we do, people that are financially participatory in our projects. And then we have this other one over here called, what's it called? Substack, which is essentially a blog platform for nerds who like to read. There's the YouTube for the lazies. We just talk and watch videos all the time. Then there's your Instagram for the people that don't got time to be lazy. And then you got your Substack, and that's where the people who have all the time in the world to read all the time. So we write stuff down and we put it over on Substack. We also write stuff down and put it on the Patreon blog. And it's sort of a reason we do this show. The idea is to each Friday do a recap of what's happened with a focus on what our Second Amendment protects, not so much guns. Other people can waste their time on that or spend their time on that. It's not a waste. I just don't feel like doing it. But, focusing on what the Second Amendment protects. And then the idea is to create incrementally an archive, right? Document the happenings. There's no way to see the cycles unless we start showing people the cycles. At least for people don't stick around long enough to see the cycles that we live in as gun owners. And as gun owners, we live in a lot of cycles. Some of them are long and some of them are short, like the 4-year cycle of the elections for sure. The cycle of trends and all kinds of other things. We have, of course, laws and things. The cycle of abuse from antis. So part of this is to start documenting some of that. We've been doing it for a while now. And at some point, we'll be able to take this data and do something with it, extrapolate something from it. But right now, we're in the process of creating it. So what we do is we post it over here on Patreon. We post it over here on Substack. And then on this show, the live show, we read what we've been posting, right? And that's the goal. So we want to thank the people who participate both by creating stuff out there, because there's a lot of people here that we're just talking about. They're doing all the work. Then there's the people that join in and be part of the show, people we just mentioned out there and more. And then there's all the people that are on our, what is it called? Podbean, people that are out there in the podcast world. And that's where most of the listeners are. Why can't I find it? Oh, I'm in the wrong place. That's why. I'm just grabbing the link to Podbean, which I should do more often. And then, of course, our Patreons and our channel members, the people who, again, as capitalists, help us keep doing what we're doing by participating in it financially. And most of them are doing that to the tune of a cup of coffee a month, a couple of bucks, a couple of $5. A couple of people are buying us lunch, $20 a month. And that gets, all that accumulates and pays off the servers. That's the main thing. And then some software. And then the time it takes to put the stuff together. I'm not asking for a lot of money for that, but I appreciate the people that participate in that. And like I say, there's a reason for this. There's a goal, and that is to document this stuff. A lot of people talk about this stuff, and that's cool. We have to talk about it. And it's good to have a lot of people talking about it, because then we get different minds in on it. But there's not very many people writing it down. And the places it is being written down are newsletters, which are emails, and those aren't publicly, well, they aren't always publicly out there. So that's our goal, technically, is to put this stuff out every week. All right, that being said, let's get into it. We do that on Patreon. We mentioned that. We have a newsletter, which I really should take that off there because I haven't done the newsletter in a while. But if you're one of those newsletter people, I understand it is a big thing for some people. And if you are one of them, squeak, the squeaky wheel gets the time, essentially. And because no one's ever complained that I quit doing the newsletter on a regular basis, I quit doing the newsletter on a regular basis. But every once in a while, I do send one out. So I leave the list there. But again, if you're a newsletter enthusiast, then squeak. So I know to spend some time on that. Otherwise, this is Substack. I've actually been enjoying Substack. We have a paid supporter on Substack. So we have a third way now. You can be a channel member on YouTube, with money financially. You can be a Patreon, of course. Or now you can also be on Substack. So that was, but due to someone requested it. And I was like, oh, sure, I'll turn that on. I never turned it on, so I never thought about it. But it's pretty neat. So thanks for that. And like I say, it's really just this big blog system that a bunch of people use. So it's worth posting stuff here. I really like the formatting anyway. So it accomplishes the visual aspect of this show for us also. And then Instagram. I don't know. I'm about lukewarm on Instagram at this point. I keep in touch with a lot of companies on Instagram for my review stuff that I got to do, but the most of the stuff I do on Instagram is just talking to my friends and farting around and showing dog pictures. So I don't really use Instagram as a branch of the projects anymore. What happened to my mouse? Am I roboting? What happened? I don't even have a mouse anymore. Where is it? Did it get unplugged? I think it got unplugged. Oh, no, there it is. Problem is, I got a lot of monitors here. They stretch out for miles, and I lost my mouse in them somewhere. Crabby is saying happy Every Second Matters week. Thanks for that. You're one of the few people that are keeping Every Second Matters alive. I am finished my taxes here. Next month, I'll have paid off all my taxes and got a good chunk into next year's. And then I have one more credit card to kill. Then I'll get back on what we're planning to do with Every Second Matters. So Every Second Matters isn't dead. It's not even on life support. It's just sitting there recuperating. But it's getting ready to do something useful, hopefully before the elections even. But appreciate the connotation there. Every Second Matters is a project from 2013 that is really just an awareness campaign, and some people keep it alive, and there's been times when it's kind of almost gone on life support, but it's pretty much managed to have somebody each month do something for it since 2013. Pretty neat. What was just saying, he's 90% just dogs. I also watch a lot of dog stuff. I used to watch a lot of Doberman stuff, and those posts are okay, but Dobermans are majestic and they do cool stuff and they're big. So, most of the time we're doing stuff with our Dobermans. When I had a Doberman, and you're taking pictures of your Doberman in front of stuff because they're awesome and they're big and they look really good. But pugs, they do stuff. They're always being funny or doing something that's cute or whatever. So it's just a different type of channel. And people are always doing funny stuff with them. Sometimes there's funny stuff with Doberman stuff, but that's definitely a different vibe to the pug channels now. So I still watch the Doberman stuff, and now I watch the pug stuff. And Mello doesn't get a channel because there is no channels for white fluffy dogs like her. Anyway, next is the podcast world, and I did mention that we are over on the Podbean. We appreciate everybody that subscribes or follows us over there. There's lots of podcast options, and I don't want you to change whatever you're comfortable with, because Podbean just lets us kind of distribute out to iTunes and iHeartRadio and Google and Amazon and all the others. But it also and it gives us statistics, which is pretty cool. But if you do join it and give us a thumbs up, we appreciate it. And if you do, we encourage you to check out, I don't know how to do it, but if you find our account and click on it, you'll see that we're following like 40 different gun-related podcasts. So I spent like a couple of days a while back, like digging out every current gun-related podcast I could find that was worth a crap and followed it on Podbean, so that it wouldn't be a waste of time to ask people to join us on Podbean. So there's actually something there you can look at, a pretty current list of, or at least current as of a couple months ago, list of current gun-related podcasts over there, and military. I do some military, so I follow some military channels too. All right, so I'm going to pour some water into this canteen, which I probably should have done, or I guess it's a thermos, which I should have done before the show, but Gizzard was corking, as I mentioned, so that's not my fault. We're going to be talking about the news of the week. I actually got some news of the weekend after a couple of weeks of not being able to spend time on it enough to get to that section. Then we talk about the 2A talk, which is technically why we're even here. Like, I only care about the 2A stuff. The gun stuff to me is pretty boring at this point. I grew up with gun stuff, and I've seen so many back and forths and ups and downs and complaints and oblivious. That's the worst part. Everybody that gets into big fights and stuff about stuff like grip angles and red dots, that's at least something to pay attention to. But when everybody just doesn't pay attention to something and takes something for granted, that's frustrating. But anyway, I don't really pay attention to the gun stuff too much anymore. But the 2A stuff is what I'm interested in, and hopefully offering that people are find useful and motivational, or inspirational maybe, and hopefully motivational. I don't really care if you're inspired. Hopefully you're inspired, or you would have never looked at this, but motivated to get out there and start doing something. But then we will talk about some gun stuff, because I do pay attention to some gun stuff, I guess, even after I said that. Then there's some two-way radio shows, some gun-related radio shows that I definitely like to promote each week. Then there's the calendars. We'll take a look at that. We'll be taking a look at the military interview shows that I watch each week and listen to. And then we didn't do too much this week, but normally at the end of the show we talk about what I got accomplished this week. All right, so we're going to go back up to the top and start with news of the week. And there's more of this, obviously. I'm not here to hype it all up or to get you all worried about stuff. There's plenty of people to waste your time with that. Be rational about it. Be strong. And this is an election year, so just discern. Is that the right word? You know, what's worth your time and effort. But with that being said, this is essentially the bullet points that come off of an email that NSSF sends out each Friday in the afternoon. So the National Shooting Sports Foundation sends this out. And it's a pretty decent summary. Essentially, it's a summary of writers' articles that they think are cool from the week. And that essentially turns into, you know, the bullet points of the Second Amendment related stuff. Like I said, I'm sure we're missing stuff here, but it usually does find things that are less sensationalized than the mainstream. And I assume most people, if you're paying attention to my show, you're also paying attention to some of the mainstream stuff. So what's the point of me regurgitating what everybody already knows? That being said, NICS background checks are down 11% from this time last year, which, I don't know, if we are going to hang our hat on stuff like the growth in NICS checks, then we have to know that that's going to end at some point, right? So being upset about that or being discouraged by that is a non-start. There's no reason to be. I've never believed the inflated numbers, but I knew that no matter what, the numbers are going to come back down. I mean, it's just, even if generally they go up in the long run, they're still going to fluctuate. So watching them like a hawk, I just know this from other aspects of doing things. Watching analytics is never really a good idea. Using analytics to predict based on evaluation is worthwhile, but not constantly. Not judging every step you're going to take based on what steps you took. It's analysis by or paralysis analysis or whatever. So anyway, I put it in here because I don't know how many people are paying attention to that one. I don't think I saw that anywhere else this week. The next one is 26 states attorney generals are suing the ATF over the engaged in business rule. I'd like to see that it'd be like at 34, really, right? I'm going to put this out there. We need more shows where they sit around talking about these topics from different angles. Something like a 3 or 4 person panel that talks about these issues with bullet points. You know, not let's get into each one and spend an hour bickering or harping on something, but just here's my angle, here's my angle, here's my angle, and then move on. Because, again, we should have that at like 34 states. 26 is a majority, barely. So that's a heinous issue for gun owners, but it's also pretty heinous when you think about the overreach that is giving the executive branch. There should be people upset about the engaged in business rule for more reasons than just the gun aspect of it. That being said, moving on, 19 state attorney generals oppose the Red Flag Resource Center. Well, that's frustrating too, because that should be back in the 30s also, in my opinion. But I'm not going to sit here and bicker about them, but so we've got 2 issues that are being shoved down as distractions for the election cycle, and we've got election representatives doing something about it. Well, in this case, what are attorney generals? Are they appointed? I guess I don't know. Maybe it depends on the state, but at least we've got a pretty decent number of states' attorneys, the people who are kind of the people each state is the head person in each state responsible for their legal thing, essentially looking at these super illegal laws, but also just unenforceable laws, and they're saying, what the hell, federal government, think before you put stuff out. And anyway, that's good. This has been effective in the past, and this has nothing to do with the lawsuit. So I'm wondering how often we're going to see the national level organizations do more than just mention this stuff. But this is the kind of stuff where that soapbox becomes critical. We got the soapbox, we got the ballot box, and blah, blah, blah. The soapbox is how we can applaud the representatives, or in this case, people in the executive branch, like the state attorney generals, applaud their actions and focus on those. You put a magnifying glass or a spotlight on it positively, give them a pat on the back, and not just always a slap on the wrist. So, and maybe do a slap on the wrist for those states that didn't participate. So I think there's something there. Moving on, Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act passed out of committee. I didn't even read more about that. I was in Gizzard's show, and I just I copied and pasted this one without reading much into it, but I do want to go back and read more about that one. I don't know enough about that one. But, out of a committee, big whoop. Now it has to go to the whole House, I guess, and then it has to go to the Senate, and then it has to go through Biden. He likes to spend money, but not on, who knows what the Veterans Second Amendment Protection Act is. Probably something about they can't take away your gun or your Second Amendment right with your, what's that called? Financial fiduciary rights or whatever it's called. Black Rifle Medics out there, welcome. And Woods of Sandy Hope. I think you mean With Every Second Matters. Right on. It'll definitely be a collaborative thing whenever it gets going. Next is the science bill to assign firearms code to guns and ammo purchases. That's one of the things. I think they're dealing with maybe 3. I don't know if I haven't watched the most current updates to what's happening there, but I know they were running out of time as a legislature to do anything new or to move anything, and because it takes a certain amount of time to move something like any major bill, they were definitely running out of time from both ends, like how much time they need to do this and how much time there is possibly left to even potentially do it. So I don't know if the clock ran out or not, and this is all that's left, but this is what I got from the email this afternoon. When we look at the videos in the future here on this show, there's one from Melissa up in Colorado, but it's from a few days ago, and she's alluding to everything I just said there, that the time is running out for Colorado representatives to either prevent or push through bullshit gun control. All right, next is the 72-hour waiting period for firearms purchases became law in Maine by the governor not doing anything. So that needs to be held responsible, like that governor needs to be gone, and with a understanding of why they're gone, because they did nothing and allowed a useless law to be passed because it wasn't vetoed. So that's a failure of the legislative side for coming up with the idea in the first place and then pushing it over to the executive branch, and then definitely a failure of the singular person on the executive side to not say, no, this isn't constitutional, it's ineffective, it's proven stupid, it's just a dumb idea. But instead they let it go through, and now Maine has to work to get rid of it, and it's usually more of a pain in the ass. It's an opportunity for them to now get rid of it and educate a bunch of people in Maine how stupid it is for a law to require people to wait 72 hours before picking up their firearm after they purchase it. Next is NSSF invites the Patron member company employees. Okay, so NSSF, the National Shooting Sports Foundation, the people that push out the newsletter that we're reading these bullet points from right now. This first portion of our show is from them. NSSF invites their essentially members and the employees of the people who are members of NSSF to apply for education scholarships. And they've got $50,000 in education scholarships. That sounds pretty cool. I think it said going up to 20 individuals. So if you work in the firearms industry and your company is an NSSF member and you are enrolled in any kind of, I think it's a college or trade school. So if you're already enrolled and you're not independently wealthy and you could handle some extra funding, get with NSSF. They've got 50 grand out there to help with that. Speaking of a lot of money, Hornady from Nebraska donates $750,000 to a community college I'm assuming in Nebraska. So $750,000. I mean, that's cool, and it's for their criminal justice department or something. But it's just amazing that Hornady has $750 million to donate, like not to use to build infrastructure, not to do other things with. Like they got that much money to donate. Maybe it's something that's behind the scenes, like that's $7,000 for the next 150 years or something. But wow, I just was blown away by the number of money going to a community college. And I think it said for a ballistics lab in their police department. So I guess if they're just trying to make the destinations point for CSIs, maybe. All right. Well, we're going to go into the next part of the show, the Second Amendment portion of the show. And first thing we'll talk about is Kingpin doing the Every Second Matters post. One of the people who's most consistently keeping the concept of focusing on what our Second Amendment protects on the second day of each month. So the Every Second Matters was a campaign that was created by a bunch of, maybe 20-something people that used to chat quite a bit back then in these live rooms. And we did it on YouTube in front of everybody. And when I say 20 people, it was like 6 people at a time. But there was a fairly regular group of people that would get together and we'd have different conversations about stuff. Live conversations on the internet were fairly new. Certainly on YouTube, they were brand new. And, well, they weren't brand new. They were a couple years old, but, nowhere like today where they're 10 years into them. It wasn't that it wasn't common. It was just that there was a much more participatory feel to it. People were all part of it. It wasn't like a spectator thing yet. And in more ways than one, the people that participated in the shows live, who sat on the panels and participated in the conversations, talking back to back or, face to face, whatever you want to say. And then additionally, there was the text conversation. It was much more lively back in the day. I mean, I'm not saying it ain't well, my shows are not very lively at all, but some shows it seems very lively. Back in the day, holy moly, like who all remembers? Who all's back here that old that remembers, the 2010, 11, 12, 13 comment period or comment sections of the videos when we were live. Just, easily hundreds of people in these shows all the time. And lots and lots and lots of side conversations going on. And in a way that people were so, kind of accustomed to it that they were happening, I want to say courteously or like at least organizationally or whatever, like they were all happening. Anyway, it was an interesting time. And since there was such a large group of people getting together, we had a lot of diverse like opinions and perspectives and life histories and ways of accomplishing stuff. So I think it was a couple of shows we all got together and we're talking about how it was frustrating that the resistance to Obama's executive actions earlier that year in 2013 had kind of gone away. Like we could tell from the audiences I was just describing, like those audiences were dwindling and the interest in being vigilant, I guess, was less and less necessity. So it was less of a thing. So a bunch of us were kind of talking about that, and the idea came up to do something on the regular that would create an opportunity for people to stay connected. So that, just sort of a formality, like a lot of traditions, like a lot of things that we do them so that we remember why we had to do it. You do this small thing so that you remember that why, the people that had to do the big thing. So by getting together, it boiled down to we got together on the second day of the month and we did something to create awareness about what our Second Amendment protects. Guess what? Video people made videos. Instagram people made Instagrams. I bet you Facebook people made Facebooks. People would do different things. There was this guy named Artisan Tony, who may or may not still be out there. And he created the logo. There was a bunch of people that all threw in ideas, and everybody liked his idea the best. And I don't know where this came from. Somebody probably made it. Was that one guy? There was a dude in Michigan, I think, that was doing a lot of wood burnings. He might have done this. I want to say barbecue, but it wasn't barbecue. It was something like barbecue, though. But it's a different barbecue than what we know. Anyway, potatoes, maybe? I forget that. But anyway, it's Kingpin posted something about Every Second Matters. Sometimes Krabby will post stuff. Every once in a while, I'll see Woods post something. There's some other people that'll post Every Second Matters stuff. And that's really what it's all about. When it's sort of like having the storm shelters. When you need them, you know where they are and you know what to do. You get in there. The rest of the time, you don't need to go in the storm shelter. You know it's there. You hope somebody went there and cleaned the cobwebs out. You hope somebody went in there and put clean water in there or something. But for the most part, you kind of take them for granted most of the time. But every once in a while, like I say, you want to go in there and clean them out. You want to go in there and restock everything. And that's what Every Second Matters is on that second day of the month. It's the people that want to get together, kind of chat, so that when we need to, it's not like the first time we're meeting each other. All right, I've been talking about it for a while. I'll move on. But it'll evolve. At least I'm going to take it in a different direction here when I'm able. All right, then we have She Fires doing a cool, I don't know how she does this. Is she doing the editing? Does she pay some fancy person to do editing? But this is like a fancy TV show or something. Essentially her trip from Florida to Tejas. And from earlier, I don't remember, it was this month. I think it was earlier in March. Great video, though. And I don't know, did she do a video on Sunday? Oh, Fosta's Every Second Matters also. Good point. The little puppy over here decided to make a bunch of noises while he's sleeping. Another person that does Every Second Matters on the regular is Gizzard. Gizzard corked us today. He has a show before this one.
This is Earl Benson reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central, Wednesday 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
Thanks, Earl. And thanks to Voss for that special alert, that special announcement. All right. Still in the Second Amendment section of everything, and we're going to get... All right. I'm listening to somebody back up with their little beepy noise out there. I thought it was a little bit later in the night. Foss made that, yes. Let's see. So, Sisters in Arms is a TV show. Carrie Ann and Rebecca. Okay, I can't remember. But Massachusetts and Rhode Island are they get together and do this show. This is part 34, and this is part 2 with I don't remember his name, with the representative from Massachusetts, and who's been involved with a project called Nero's Law, which is the Massachusetts an effort in Massachusetts to support military animals beyond thinking of them as property of the department. There was an instance where a police working dog was injured, and none of the paramedics, when there was a lot of people there, but none of the paramedics at the scene was able or comfortable or willing to deal with the first aid for the animal. And it was very traumatic and frustrating, and the animal lived, but it was an indication that was a glitch, right? Like an unnecessary hindrance to support those animals if they get injured. And they get injured all the time because they're doing stuff where, where they're in the harm's way. Woods of Sand TV show like on cable or YouTube? Yeah, sorry. It was a TV show like they go to the studio and they share a studio at a someplace in Massachusetts, I believe, and then have airtime. So I think it's on cable TV. And then, of course, on YouTube as well. But it's in the format of a TV show. So for people that are used to that form factor or that medium, gives it that feel or that vibe, as the kids would say. Then we got the Gunmakers match. Dang, I yawn a lot because I'm off the coffee. The Gunmakers match happened last weekend, and this was the Guns for Everyone podcast out of Colorado, and they host the Gunmakers match that happened in Pennsylvania. And this was, imagine a recap and then the rest of their podcast. And I showed up about halfway through and was there for like the regular podcast. It was actually pretty cool of them.
And we're live
at a point.
Understanding. His techniques weren't that good. I mean, his grip on the gun. He was struggling with his grip. Yeah. But
I'll have to find the point.
I don't know if he's ever run ads on his website or whatever, but is that they say are important to them. Right. We're a victim of our own success.
Yeah, well, they did a pretty nice. They complimented the projects and everything that we've been working on for a long time. So thanks for that. It's always good to hear somebody who's appreciated the different things that we've done, because I've done different things over the years. So somewhere about that far into the show, they mentioned that. It was pretty nice. Thanks for that. Let's see. Then we have, I don't know what's going on with Walk the Talk America right now. They had been doing their podcast kind of regularly on Friday mornings, and then every once in a while would switch over to Thursdays, kind of screw everybody up if they were, waiting for it on Friday. But now they're doing the Clover Tack method of podcast, where they just go live whenever they feel like it, and they're live sometimes 3 times in a day. So I guess they're doing what Clover does, where they just are recording everything on YouTube live for podcast, and then it'll all probably get scheduled on podcast format. They're probably like a lot of us, where they make way more views or listens or whatever they're called on podcasts than they do on YouTube. So YouTube gets kicked in the nuts, and we have to just kind of be available either constantly or at all hours of the day. I think there was one this week where it was like at 8:00 at night. Like I was watching something else, and then they were live like at 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. or something. Gizzard's out there. I'll run the Gizzard promo here in a bit. So anyway, Walk Talk America's had, I don't know, 5, 6 podcasts this week. One of them was with Maj Toure from Black Guns Matter in Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia. And I guess something got cross-wired. They only did like 40 minutes of the show and then cut it short and then did a part 2. I haven't watched the part 2, but part 1 was pretty good, so I'm assuming the part 2 was okay. But they, like I said, had 6 other shows or something. I watched a couple of them, but there was too many of them to watch, and some of them I just didn't feel like watching. But they haven't really addressed why they're doing so many of them at odd times. But if you're into their perspective and their kind of vibe of the show, you're in luck, because they've been doing a lot of them. And well, they haven't really said anything, but I'm assuming they'll keep doing them. I guess we don't know. Let's see. Then comes the Forge of Freedom out of Indiana. And they spent some time defining the new definition of frame and receiver. and the lawsuit that's going to the Supreme Court for that. How much more do we have? Yeah, we have a couple more though. Because we're this thing. I don't know how this came up. I might have watched an Ironclad before, but it's not one that I watch on the regular. But for whatever reason, it came up in a feed or in a search or something, or it was a recommended. And I decided to start listening to it because it said Operation Fast and Furious. And we all know Operation Wide Receiver was the beginning of that. And that's Mike Deddy. And that's here in Tucson. He's a friend of mine. So I figured, well, I'm going to watch this in case Mike's on there. Then I can watch Mike on the podcast or whatever. But it wasn't Mike. It was an ATF agent out of Phoenix, well past what Mike had been doing. Mike was an FFL here in Tucson, and then a kid came up and tried to buy a whole bunch of receivers in, I don't remember what years those were, a long time ago, 8 or 15 or back, it was like 8, I think. And, it was unusual for sure back then. And Mike went to his ATF contact or whatever and said, hey, this happened. What do you want me to do? And they were like, well, I'll tell you what. And I don't remember exact details, but essentially it turned out to be just go ahead and sell it to him. Go for it. Go nuts. And then it was like, go sell it to him, keep the money, but then let us know what happens. And allegedly the ATF was going to then follow the kid, see what he did with them guns or those receivers or whatever it was. I forget the details anymore. But it eventually kept going, and it turned into Mike essentially being an expert witness. Is that what it's called? No. Yeah. Is that what it's called? Not an expert witness. That would be Masadi. What is it called when you're an informant? So where normally informants are criminals who are doing that so that they can get out of jail, Mike was just a regular guy. FFL, business owner and writer, and I think Marine. And they were treating him the way they would treat, a typical criminal who's just trying to get out of the consequences of their actions. And it didn't eat Mike up, but it was frustrating for him to have to deal with it because the ATF didn't have a way to deal with what he was. So anyway, he had his own situation there, and then what happened there ended, and the people in Phoenix, a different headquarters or whatever it's called, division or something, different part of the FBI, different office, maybe that's what they call it, decided, hey, I'm going to do what they did down in Tucson, but more, a lot more. And where Mike maybe sent hundreds of guns through to cartel people so that they could be tracked by the ATF on the orders of the ATF, up in Phoenix, it's more to the order of 2,200 guns got pushed through to the cartels. 2,200 guns were told by the ATF, or the FFLs were told by the ATF, sell them, go for it, do it. So one that's super interesting to hear from the ATF agent's perspective, and he was not happy, and he ended up getting moved or transferring to a different portion of the country because he wasn't dealing with the situation, the ATF guy that's talking about the interview here. But when you look at it also, there's a current lawsuit with the state of Mexico, or the country of Mexico, against a bunch of gun shops in Arizona. And those are the gun shops that the ATF was using for Operation Fast and Furious. So the ATF, who has the regulatory and enforcement burden or responsibility for FFLs, gun shops in the United States, and also the enforcement responsibility, decided in order to enforce the law, they were going to follow the guns across the border and into Mexico. And then I don't know what they were thinking, because there was no plan anywhere that said how they're going to do that. They just thought it was a good idea, and they started doing it. Anyway, those are the gun shops that are being sued by Mexico right now. And I don't know if anybody's talking about that. And this was a show called Ironclad. Anyway, normally I would put that in the military interviews because that's definitely a military interview type of thing. But again, that's a pretty significant thing. Seeing is, just seeing as the results of Fast and Furious are coming back to bite everybody over and over again. All right, we keep moving. Let's see. Then we have Walk Talk America doing a fundraiser for $100,000. Top Shot Chris is gonna match any donation over 500 or any donation under 500 up to $5,000, and I think he raised $2,700 the first day, and then some companies kicked in, and Walk Talk America is raising funds. Let's see. Then we get to Gun Culture 2.0 or Light Over Heat with Professor Imani from Wake Forest University. And this was section 5 of a 7-section free course that he's been offering on Monday afternoons. It's like I'd say 70% what you find on his YouTube channel. If you've watched all his YouTube videos, you've essentially seen 70% of what happens. But then there's the other 30% for sure. So different things are happening, or it's different time, and time has gone on. We've all learned more from those days. But then the side chat is pretty awesome with a bunch of different people having great conversations. Really, who's who of Second Amendment world. Something like 100, did he say? 125 people attending it. You can attend it. It's free. There's just 2 more. One of them's the next Wednesday or something, and then the one after that it skips a week. It'll be on Monday again, I think. We talked about the states that are joining a lawsuit against the ATF. That was GOA talking about it. And now we're going to get to gun talk. Why don't we do that commercial for the Gizzard Gary show that was happening just before this show, and we were corked on by it.
This is Earl Benson reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central, Wednesday 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
Thank you, Earl, for that announcement. For that update. All right, so we're getting into gun talk. Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network. There's lots of different companies that claim to be insurance. They're all protection for legal issues, but they're all different versions of liability coverage. But this one is unique. This was the first one, and instead of bickering or comparing grip angles with each other, the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network is just that. It's just a network. It's just a bunch of people that put funds into a pile, and that pile is now worth many, many millions of dollars. So the members can pull from that for support if necessary. And since the members pretty much never pull from it, it just keeps growing. And one of the things they offer is up training, skill building, and development, because one aspect of a lethal force incident is your ability to articulate your situation. If you need to, just period, but also if you ever have to in court. And one way to create a situation where the jury is a peer is to offer information to the jury that was offered to you. And that's one of the things that the Well, all of them can potentially do, but the legal armed citizens, legal defense network specifically, that's one of the aspects of it. In fact, it's to the point where you watch some CDs when you become a member, and you sign those CDs every time you watch them, and then that potentially could be used in court to indicate your awareness of various, circumstances or various aspects of the legal or whatever, aspects of a case. And because it's created by a bunch of attorneys and people that have dealt with, from the police side of it, courtroom, it's a more encompassing service or organization or network or whatever you want to call it than just paying $30 quote unquote for insurance. And I guess I'm saying all that because these videos are part of that whole infrastructure. What kind of dog breed is this? This dog is a pug, I think, but this dog is what's called a stray, so there's no way to really know. But judging from his noises and his blubber and his little toothpick legs, I think this dog is considered a pug. One of the oldest breeds, they say. This is some kind of a Chinese character right here, written into his wrinkles, they say. He can speak Chinese. He'll understand Chinese when I'm watching something on the TV or on the YouTube. And he's got little tiny toothpick legs. I don't know how old it is because this dog was found running around. And because of the way their mouths are, the doctor couldn't say exactly how old it was. I've had to pay for this dog's eaten for at least 2 years now. So we know that it's at least 2 years worth of eating old. It's the co-host of this show. He is the co-host of the show, but he's exhausted from supervising everything today, and he's just sitting here. But yeah, thanks for giving us a break to talk about the puppy. A lot of shows would suggest you're not even supposed to have dogs on the show, but our puppy is the co-host. All right, so I really like Marty and Gila, and the Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network doesn't try. They don't put on airs. He's like listening to somebody's grandpa. Like, he created the things for the reason, and he's got his reasons for it, and it's pretty solid. And anyway, it's interesting to hear him doing this. Oh, that's true. He is the victim of eating a bunch of hemp treats in the middle of the evening. So that's happening to him too. I forgot that I gave him those marijuana treats earlier. One of the other things from Armed Citizens Legal Defense Network is one of their, what are they called? Board of Directors, maybe? Is Masad Ayub, and he's talking about, essentially they're just sitting down and talking about his origin story / what he's been up to, what he's accomplished type of thing. Moss is a cool dude. He's done a lot of things. He's been he's in the forefront. He's been one of the first people to do a bunch of things. He's like kind of a OG, I guess. Like the first to do a lot of things, and then he's done things for so long that he's also become like one of the ways to do things, and certainly a gold standard, like something that everything else will be judged as it's either better or worse than Masad Ayub. And he set a high bar, so it'll be pretty difficult to be better. It is possible to be different and newer, right? More appropriate for the times. Does that make him better? But anyway, so Moss is pretty cool, and I don't know, I can't remember watching this anymore, but it's like 20 minutes of Moss talking with Gila. All right, next is the Gun and Gear Review podcast. That happens on Tuesday, pretty much when Ghost's show is on. I think they kind of quirk each other. Ghost, if Ghost ended early, this show wouldn't cork him, but this show starts corking him about 3/4 of the way into Ghost show usually, and if Ghost goes late, then he'll just run right over this show. Or this show really, Ghost is the semi. This show hauls ass and rear ends him so hard that, is it his fault? The Ghost was just driving. He's doing his thing. This is the one that came up and went faster. Here or there. They did their show on Tuesday. On Wednesday, speaking of Foss, we have the mouse party, and that is it's an amazing fun time. It's an unscripted conversation in the middle of the evening for all the people that are awake and doing stuff in the middle of the night when everybody else takes everything for granted, and all the people that are getting stuff done, delivering everything, moving things from here to there, making sure that nothing gets stole, making sure everything gets fixed, reset, prepped for all those folks. That's why we go live in the middle of the night, and that's why Foss goes live in the middle of the night. Then there's Gizzard. Wait, Gizzard? Didn't we see something about Gizzard?
This is Earl Benson reporting from downtown Topeka, where Gizzard Gary is rampaging through the city. Authorities have asked the public to stay indoors. They believe he will tire soon and need a nap. Gizzard Gary can normally be seen on Foul Territory Friday nights at 7 p.m. Central, Wednesday 8 p.m. for the channel members chat. Stay safe and give him the bird. Earl Benson signing off.
262 shows. Think about that. He's not just making up numbers. It's 262. There's only 52 weeks in a year. He's been doing that show for a while. There's, again, we talk about Every Second Matters being designed in a way to keep people tethered, keep people aware of each other, keep communities alive. That only happens once a month, and it doesn't happen because there's nobody keeping it alive except for the people we mentioned, a few handful of people that keep it alive. And there's been people like that over the years, and every once in a while it'll get a little bit of life back into it. But what has life into it every single week is Gizzard's Foul Territory show. 262 episodes, and nobody pays attention to it. But for a long time, this little 2-hour show that he does on Friday was the little show compared to his Sunday show, which was 4 hours live every Sunday morning, keeping people together, letting people touch base, see what's up, get a finger on the pulse. Unlike some bullshit television show, like a news show that happens where the talking heads spout their bullshit and their little elevator speeches and their bullet points, having a panel and an opportunity for a bunch of people who have the chance to jump in or have the passion to jump in and speak their mind or offer their perspective or give their insight. That's real. And there's, Gizzard isn't making a dime doing that. He's not. He digs it because we happen to have a guy who's retired and he happens to dig it. We shouldn't take that for granted. 262 shows. All right, now we'll get into some radio shows. I don't know what number it is, but the Gun Owners Radio is the San Diego gun owners out of San Diego. Guess what? And they do a show live on the radio on Sunday afternoons in San Diego somewhere, and they stream that show live. And most of the time it goes without a hitch, but because it's being streamed from the middle of a radio station, and if you've never been to a radio station, there's a ton of antennas still. At least the radio stations I've gone to, or I go to on the regular basis. There's a billion satellite dishes and things with all their feeds, and I imagine it just wails on live connections. It does for me here in Tucson. But anyway, that being said, they go live and let's see, they cork somebody. Is it She Fires? I think now She Fires starts a little bit earlier than them, and if She Fires goes long or late, she starts to cork them or whatever. But anyway, this is a great show, and it's a good chance to get caught up with Mike White and Mr. Knives and a couple other people who I don't remember as much because I don't have a note them as long. But there's a good group of people over there that are in California that watch that show live, and they are aware of each other there. And speaking of that, I remember I was watching this one because there's another gun show coming up. We went out thanks to the Patreons. It cost $500 to get over to San Diego and spend a day. Essentially, drive over there. What do we do? Drove over there, slept in the van, or just kind of didn't sleep. Hung out at that dog beach, and then went to the gun show. Got a hotel room, took a quick nap, went back and watched Red Dawn on the big screen. Then went back to the hotel room, fell asleep, woke up, and drove back to Tucson. That cost $500 in gas and $100 for the hotel. Just to experience that show. That was pretty cool. And I would definitely not have been able to do that if we didn't have Patreons. I mean, that ate up Patreon money for a long time, but again, I would not even have considered it without Patreon. So thanks for the people that make that possible. But that being said, they have another show. That show, I think they said they anticipate. I don't know what they anticipated. They needed 4,000 people to show up to make it worthwhile. I don't think I'm talking shit because they've said this online on their show. And they only had 2,500 people show up. So that's not necessarily the kind of results that make you know that there's going to be a next show, right? So it was really cool news to hear that there is going to be another show. You can't have success if you stop after the first lack of success, right? So they're doing good. They're in a part of the country that's obviously under the boot is on their neck and has been for a while. So seeing people in that circumstance do something awesome is awesome. They also have the gun prom. It's quite a while from now, but it's another project that they do later on in the year. Anyway, they do a show every Sunday. It's cool catching up with that show. And sometimes, I can't say always, they'll leave the stream running while they're doing the commercials, because on a radio show there's like sometimes 2 minutes worth of commercials, and that's forever. And sometimes they'll always play something during the commercial break. They'll play some snippet from a presentation or a seminar or something, which are interesting, but it's way more interesting when they just leave the cameras running and the stream live while the radio station plays commercials for 2 minutes, because then they just they're part of the conversation. They were interacting with the audience on the YouTube stream, just like Rapid Fire Radios does every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday. So I barely get to catch them. I got to see 2A Tuesday this week, and I should be able. No, I'm never going to be able to catch a Wednesday one again, but I should be able to catch some Tuesday ones once in a while going forward. But it's cool to see these shows get better, right? Like they're not stagnant. They're not just saying the same thing over and over. And that's not everybody. There's a lot of shit out there that's garbage, that's just the same thing over and over. Let's just repeat it. You know why? Because they know that without those cycles I alluded to earlier, and audiences are cyclic. Y'all get sick of the bullshit and you leave. You've seen it all, so you keep moving, and that there's people out there that exploit that. There's people out there that actually prosper from that, because they only have to do 1 or 2 iterations of whatever their stick is, and they know that they can just go back and forth, do their same thing over and over, and by the time people figure out that all they're doing is the same thing over and over, those people have left and new people have come along, and they're experiencing it for the first time. So it's awesome to see an alternative to that. Just noticed that we went from dozens and dozens of people down to almost no one. So either the show got horrible after an hour, or something glitched, or something. So if you're out there, say hey. But according to this, and what's weird is it's been telling, we've had a growing number of people watch the show. But either something I said about San Diego struck a nerve, or maybe a server glitched or something. But all right. Going back to Gun Owners Radio, they must have had Drago, whatever. guy from Poland. But whenever I heard this guy for the first time, I can't remember whose show he was on, but this guy is a SEAL. Yeah, he's a SEAL, I think. Yeah, he's a SEAL, and he grew up in Poland under communism, got the crap kicked out of him and shit literally by communism. As soon as he could, he booked it to the United States. People took him in that he couldn't speak English, but people took him in anyway. And he persisted, eventually became a SEAL. And then not just a SEAL, but like he'd done a lot of cool shit. His stories are really cool. And I did not know he was on Gun Owners Radio, so I miss a lot of their shows. So I'm really looking forward to going back and hearing this one. Like I said, whenever I first heard this guy's first interview, I spent a day or two listening to, because he's on a couple of shows with like 5-hour interviews. I've listened to probably 12 hours of this guy talking. So I've heard a lot of the stories over and over, but typically, a SEAL is going to ask different questions than than that guy who was in the CIA, and that they're going to ask different questions than an Army Ranger. So it's always a different interview, even if the, things that they're talking about are the same points. What they're talking about, the perspectives are what makes it interesting. So anyway, I was super stoked to see that he was on Gun Owners Radio, and it's like a 20-minute one, 32 minutes. Yeah, it's definitely worth listening to. All right, I mentioned a minute ago that Cape Gunworks is a shop in Massachusetts, and they do Rapid Fire Radio, their podcast. It is a 3-part situation right now where they host a segment of the Grace Curley radio show on Tuesdays called 2A Tuesday, and that's a 45-minute segment. Toby, the host of the show, will go live in a couple of minutes before the show starts on the radio, and then stream while, again, the radio's doing its commercials and stuff. Toby will interact with the streaming audience, and then once the radio show is ended and they disconnect, Toby will usually reply to whatever comments came up during the streams. And it's a lot of fun. And right now they're under some abuse in Massachusetts, but before all that, there was games and kind of playing around and a lot of fun, just kind of with a mix of gun knowledge and law, but also just people playing around and having fun with the tech, which I really enjoyed. Toby, has radio show callers, so people calling in on telephone lines, which is interesting because those are people that are calling in have no idea what we're saying on the internet and stuff. And Toby's able to juggle all of that really well. Oh, really well. What am I saying? He juggles all that really well. In fact, I don't know if there's anybody else even out there able to do it with like a one-man situation. Anyhow, we'll keep moving. Then, like I say, he does the Grace Curley show on Tuesdays. He does his own show or the main show on Wednesdays for 2 hours. And then for something like 40 minutes or maybe an hour on the Sunday show, they go live. Toby goes live on the radio at some radio station in Massachusetts. And he'll turn his phone on and stream that. For whatever reason, this didn't turn into a hyperlink, but again, thanks to our Patreons, we have quite a few websites out there, and those servers that host them are covered or paid for by the Patreons. And I don't know why my internet's going slow. I got new internet. Did I mention we have new internets over here? I don't remember if no, I think I got on Monday. So this is the first weekly wrap-up on the new internets. So again, Gizzard is out there. Thanks to Gizzard for sending me a modem that's super fast. I used to have a shitty wire, literally like a bad wire going from the pole to the place. And I finally bugged the cable company and said, look, charge me if you're going to charge me, but come out here and change this wire, if you will. And the guy came out and he was like, oh, your wire's horrible, dude. You need a new wire. They didn't charge me or nothing. And they put a new wire in. And I went from 30 megapixels to 500 megapixels. So I've got so many megapixels, I don't even need them all. So pretty awesome. Oh, and then before Gizzard gave me his old modem, because, in case it would make my internet faster. And it really didn't, but it was because it had nothing to do with his modem. It had to do with the fact that I had a shitty wire. So anyway, this week got rid of that wire, and now I'm cruising along with super fast internet. There shouldn't be any issues. I don't know how many weeks it's been where I've been breaking up and cutting out. Seems like it's been a while, so that's over. And I'll never have an internet problem again. This is Gun Calendars. I was saying thanks to the Patrons for keeping the servers up. We're gun websites, right? Because we have a lot of websites. And one of them is guncalendars.com. And it lists all the different things that go on in each year. We'll talk about this in a second here when we get to the end of the show as well. But this segment, we're going to take a look at what's on the calendar. And let's see, today is the 3rd of May. And this is the anniversary of the birth of Wilhelm Mauser back in 1834. That's the dude that invented the Mauser, 1871. He was born today in 1834. How crazy is that? This week, Cinco de Mayo is Sunday, if you're wanting to celebrate that. We have the anniversary of the passing of Dick Casul from Caliber and Revolver, inventor or designer, manufacturer, all the above. We have the Uniform Militia Act of 1792 coming up on Wednesday, the 8th. This goes up as a podcast probably like the 10th, so that means you've got the Mother's Day coming up this weekend, or in a couple of weeks for the rest of us. Let's see, gun show law shot down in 1999. That was in Washington, D.C., where they were going to try to make a law about gun shows, and it didn't happen. And that had to do with the 1994 assault weapons ban, because people don't talk about it, but essentially anything with anti-gun was essentially a death sentence to, not a death sentence, but a career-ending sentence to politicians. Let's see, we got, I'm going to try to say his name, but Mark Makarov, the anniversary of his, come on. Interesting. It's going to be the anniversary of his passing, but he was born and he passed away in the same month, May. But he passed away on the 13th, and we'll also be talking about his anniversary of his birth on the 22nd. It's always interesting when I'm putting stuff into the calendar and I see something like that. Obviously, if he would have been alive for another week and 2 days, however old he was when he passed, he'd have been 1 year older. Of course, I have no idea what the circumstances were then, or of his death were. Let's see, then we have the U.S. versus Miller case of 1939. I gotta drink some water. That's a tough one. The Miller case is kind of a pain in the butt as far as gun stuff, because both sides say that it justifies their position, and they can do that on a number of different things. So I don't know, hour and something into the show, I won't get into it, but we have that anniversary coming up, and that was from 1939. So think about it, 1934 NFA, and then it wasn't until 1968. This was right after that NFA passed, and it was like a national level Supreme Court, came within shadow distance of the Second Amendment stuff. Again, that could take an entire discussion to talk about the specifics of it and then the consequences and repercussions of it. Let's see, depending on when you're listening to this, the 17th through the 19th are the NRA annual meetings, right? And then also the exhibits. So that's a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That's in Dallas this year. So the NRA annual meetings, because NRA is a membership organization, the annual meetings is an opportunity for the members to join the membership meetings. And that means it gets held in the usual event gets held in the convention center, and portions of the convention center or adjacent facilities are designed or created for the membership, or not the membership, but the leadership. And then I think also, well, depending on the facilities, some of the membership that's interested in speaking as well. That's what it's all about. That happens. And then there's also the exhibits, and that's things, it's like a little mini SHOT Show that everybody talks about, and as everybody's worried about, the grip angles and the red dots are on display. And the idea is that as members of the NRA, you're able to go to that for free, and the same booths, the same stuff, and often the same people, but not always, are at SHOT Show, are at the NRA show that are at SHOT Show. Occasionally, if they have like a very large booth, they'll have a smaller version of that booth at NRA, just because it's expensive to drag all that stuff around and they don't want to risk getting hurt or anything. And there's definitely a different vibe, I guess, to the event, because it's not sales, it's more potential customers kicking tires instead of manufacturers and distributors and end user shops not just kicking tires, but also deciding how many things are going to be sold. So the NRA show's coming up, and we'll see if this year it's one that the focus is on the meetings part of it, and who focuses on the meetings, and then the exhibits, and who just only pays attention to the exhibits. This is a good time to mention, I don't know why it didn't come up, but Jeff Knox and 3 others that were running for seats on the NRA Board of Directors were successful and are now on the NRA Board of Directors. I believe Amanda Suffolk and Rick Ector are also there. So we have a pretty strong group of people who are now in positions of being able to do something, not necessarily in the the pilot seat, but they're in the cockpit area, they're in that area. So it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of people that have written the NRA off, of course. It's trendy and cool and hip to dismiss the NRA completely. But, we'll see what happens in the next years, months. That being said, I blew over the anniversary from 2005 of the United States selling Venezuela. Russia selling Venezuela 100,000 AKs. So, do communist countries sell them to each other, I guess? All right, well, I am going to end this one because otherwise I keep going. The calendar goes on and on. People that are watching can see, there's lots of different events in the calendar. We try to break them down into topics you might be interested in, so you don't have to pour through the whole calendar each time you want to check something out. But the last thing we've got to bring up would be, I think I mentioned already, we have the fast internet, but also spent some time making a hypothetical trip through all of the different Second Amendment focused events throughout the rest of the year. So I'm going to go to our Substack page over here and open up another page over here. And when I broke it all down and kind of stuck it all into Google Maps, if you left in May and traveled through December, that would be 8 months on the road. You need to travel approximately 15,000 miles. You would have 10 days plus of driving, so 225 hours of driving, and it would be 1,333 gallons of gas. So in more than one way, outside of my realm at the moment, but if anybody else is interested in doing a cannonball run or sponsoring something like a cannonball run, do the math. How much does gas cost? It's going to not be cheap. At the same point, how cool would it be to get a bunch of people together with their vehicles that can potentially make the whole trip, and then off they go. Kind of a scavenger hunt or a rally race. Anyway, I just did this as a kind of a theoretical to see, because it would be awesome if I won $1 billion lottery, or somebody won $1 billion lottery and gave me $1 million. This is what I'd be doing. I'd be getting something roadworthy, and that would be a whole other discussion. And then attempting, the only thing I miss is something TriggerCon and something else. All right, well, so that was, I guess I could say, kind of a thought exercise sort of thing. And that was pretty much the only thing I spent time, Second Amendment wise, that I actually finished, started and finished something. Probably have a couple of things that I've kind of uncovered and repositioned in the list of when to do them. But we'll get more stuff coming as we have time. All right, well, so with that, I'm not getting much feedback on the show. Looks like most people have gone. So maybe an hour is the sweet spot, and then everybody can't handle it. It's too late for everybody. With that, though, we're going to wrap it up. And we'll do one more commercial from our friend Foss. Appreciate the commercials that he's able to make for us. I'll try this one out.
Sir, why are you in Barry's fishing net? He ran right into it. Get your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty apes. First off, that is incredibly rude. You ran straight into Barry's fishing net. It's ruined. How is Barry gonna fish now? I'm just trying to find some patches and some stickers. Well, all you have to do is go to gearwebsites.com and you can find 2A-related stickers and patches. And even if you need web consulting, technology consulting, 3D printing, anything like that, gearwebsites.com. Now, please get out of the net. I'm sorry, jerk.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for watching the show or being part of the show, as it were. If you're listening in the future as a podcast, thanks for checking it out. And if you would, leave us a thumb up or a like or a heart or plus sign, whatever it might be on the version of the internet that you're listening to this on. That helps the robots to determine whether or not to recommend us to others. So that we do appreciate that. And I don't see any other comments. We'll wrap it up and be back for this show in about about a week.